I'm going to be talking about each storyline of Sonic Rivals in chronological order, which means one storyline right after another past every level. At the start of the game, Sonic confronts Eggman, who says that he's captured Amy and Tails inside cards somehow. Knuckles complains that he came all the way to the island looking for the Master Emerald and couldn't find it. I like that the game acknowledged that he's the guardian of it, because it hadn't happened in quite a while. In games without him guarding or looking for the Emerald, he gets exaggerated to the point of seeming out of character because the writer takes his rare personality traits and makes him always like that to have him make an impression as a contrast to Sonic. Why did Knuckles decide to look for the Master Emerald on this island? You'd think it'd be chasing down Eggman or Rouge, not wandering around aimlessly going, "Hey, there's an island here, maybe it's here." Knuckles comments that the island feels familiar as foreshadowing before noticing Eggman. Eggman explains that he used a magical camera to turn the Master Emerald into a card. Yeah, he says it's futuristic technology. It's still magical, so it's too bad it's not explained that he used a witch to do it. And Wendy Witch Card is a thing, so it could have made sense. I assume he's going to turn it back to its original form to use it later, because otherwise that would be a pointless waste of time. Oh, what's that? He never uses the Master Emerald in this game at all, and never says he has plans to? There's really no reason to delay it? Well, whatever then. I always liked this idea because at least it was something new to the series, so it's still creative, but everyone thinks it's lame. Eggman says that if either Sonic or Knuckles want the cards, they'll have to catch him first, because he's crazy and spiteful enough that he wants to have the ultimate card collection. Well, it sounds silly, but it is in character for someone like Eggman who always has his head in the clouds. This would be in character for Boom Eggman to want to do. No hard feelings, yeah right. If Knuckles didn't have hard feelings against Sonic, he wouldn't be so desperate to compete with him in the first place. I don't really blame him for that anymore because Sonic is a jerk sometimes. Seriously, it's looking like he can't handle going without competing with or trying to beat up Sonic for too long. So it's a good thing he stopped doing that eventually. Why can't he just ask? Well, these make sense for Knuckles and Sonic to be competing with each other for the sake of it. They're friendly rivals after all. Sonic says that the winner of the race takes all. But he wouldn't actually take Knuckles' Master Emerald, because Knuckles would never stop bothering him about it, even though Eggman would never suspect that he had it. So why is he saying that? I guess he's just saying that to tease him, and thinks Knuckles knows he's just teasing him. So Eggman contacts Shadow with a communicator of some sort and says that he needs his help because someone's after him. Doesn't bother to explain it because it's all so confusing, and it's a lazy way for the plot to stall revealing the truth, and tells him to help him. How does he not realize that if he doesn't explain himself, he's even less likely to help him? I guess he asks for Shadow's help because Shadow's more morally neutral, but that's not how being neutral works. Even neutral people wouldn't help a villain with literally no prospect of a reward for it, and with everything to lose because people would hate Shadow if he found out he helped Eggman. I get Shadow wanting to help people, but not Eggman. He has literally no reason to help him. It's just making him insultingly idealistic as an exaggeration of his interpretation of Maria's wish. When it's pretty obvious that if Maria knew Eggman, she wouldn't want him to help him. Maybe he thinks he's gullible because of the events of Shadow the Hedgehog. Eggman tells Shadow to follow the signal and find him. It could make sense that Shadow's doing what Eggman wants out of curiosity. Why does the story think that he works for Eggman? Shadow sees a silver hedgehog who is chasing after Eggman. Shadow confronts Silver and angrily asks him what he wants with Eggman. Why doesn't he just assume that he's looking for Eggman to beat him up? Or at least try to arrest him? Because that's what anybody else would look for Eggman for. Somehow, instead of explaining himself, Silver immediately gets confrontational and shouts at him. In the Sonic Rivals game, Silver's an absolute jerk for no particular reason. You think Silver would know about Shadow because Shadow's immortal. I suppose in a bad future, the knowledge of Shadow would have been lost. Also, Shadow might have been killed by that point. Maybe it would make sense if Silver explained that the reason he's scared of Shadow is because he's red and black, which are stereotypical evil colors. And I know he's not familiar with media, but I feel like it's instinctive for people to think of black and red as intimidating colors. So we could have just assumed that he dyed his hair that way to scare people. Or at least be rebellious, which could also be intimidating. Shadow says he won't let Silver harm the Doctor, showing empathy for the evil mad scientist for some bizarre reason. It really should have been explained that he's a Shadow android in this game. Silver asks a question. His picture doesn't look confrontational at all. It looks like he just casually walked up to him, and somehow expected him to answer his friendly question. It makes him a bit endearing because he's so naive. But how can he be that naive when he's from a bad future? With a dark cavern in the background, Shadow asks Eggman if Silver is the one he warned him about in his transmission. Eggman, who is standing in front of Shadow and Silver, says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Meanwhile, Sonic and Knuckles confront Eggman in a different time in a different part of the cave, and Eggman says he'll let them pick a car of their choosing if they win a fight with him. Why would he hold up his end of the bargain? I guess they only trust him to out of desperation. Eggman leaves after Sonic beats him, apparently without letting him get any of the cards. And then Silver shows up. Why is he being so confrontational here? I guess his future doesn't have any records of Sonic because it was destroyed by a monster. And he just got here, so of course he doesn't know about the hero of the world. Really, Silver? I can't tell you why. So what if Silver's on a secret mission? Why does it have to be a secret anyways? It would make sense if the real reason for him not telling him why is that he thinks he won't believe him. But then he should have just said that. Shouldn't he know that Sonic would become suspicious of him and antagonize him if he doesn't tell him anything? Because that's just going to make him think he wants to work for Eggman. Why can't he tell him why? Why does he need to get to Eggman before him? Why can't they just team up? I like Sonic saying that he likes challenges. So he decides to race him there because Silver didn't explain himself. You'd expect Sonic to be completely guaranteed to get there first. But when you think about it, with Silver's telekinesis, why wouldn't he be able to go at the speed of sound? Why wouldn't he be able to push himself through the air as fast as sound? I assume he can't, but it wouldn't be surprising if he could because it's supposed to be magic. Silver has a homing attack in this game, so it could make sense that he's as fast as Sonic. Meanwhile, Rouge calls up Shadow saying that she's found out something interesting about Eggman, but insists on not telling him until later for some reason, and tells Shadow to keep chasing him for now. Knuckles shows up, Shadow insults him for letting Eggman get away, and the two of them decide to race each other to get to him. So the story moves on to Coliseum Highway. That's a pretty weird name for a highway, come to think about it. Silver tells Sonic to move aside because he already told him he wanted to talk to Eggman first. And then when Sonic says he's annoying him, he tells him to prepare himself instead of immediately saying to Eggman what he wanted to say. Why does he have to be right in Eggman's face? This plot is dumb. Meanwhile, Shadow catches up with Eggman at a different time from the other storylines and asks him what he's hiding, with Knuckles telling him to mind his own business. Why are you standing up for Eggman? They're all supposed to be on the same side. Why aren't they on the same side? If all these heroes were sprayed with magic powder that caused them to forget that they're all on the same side and be more competitive with each other, then the plot wouldn't be bad. I mean, it would be pretty overpowered, so it could have been explained that there's barely any powder left. Rouge contacts Shadow and tries to tell him what she learned about Eggman, only to be interrupted. I've always hated when this happens in a story. All it does is make me really frustrated with the character for not immediately coming out and saying what he needed to say, bluntly and quickly, instead of wasting time saying, "You'll never guess what I found out." I sure hope the villain doesn't cut me off while I waste time talking about something other than what I called you for. I know she couldn't have known that her call would be interrupted, but it just feels like a cheap way to make the reveal take longer to reach. For all she knows, Shadow could be interrupted, because he put himself in danger. Each character at this point in the storyline gets warped by a flash of light. So Shadow makes it clear that he wants to catch up with Eggman. Why would they warp to the specific locations they were? This is like Sonic Mania. And Sonic, in his typical friendly competitor way, challenges them to a race. Well, at least this is in character for him. At least it's just having fun instead of being needlessly and inexplicably confrontational just to create conflict. Because either way they would have gone on a run. Meanwhile, Knuckles confronts Eggman, who says he'll give him a card as promised, only for a flash of light to happen, and then Silver shows up. Silver asks Knuckles politely if he saw Eggman carrying something strange. Let me guess, Knuckles won't answer from being arbitrarily confrontational, right? Oh, actually he does. Then he asks him who he is. So he's still unnecessarily a jerk to him just because he doesn't know who he is. It's not like he was completely rude to everybody he talked to in SA1 in the Hub Worlds. When Knuckles shows that he doesn't know how Eggman got a hold of it, when it should be an easy assumption that he invented it, Silver naturally gets annoyed with him and leaves. Although it's still unlike him to talk like this, and Knuckles angrily decides to chase after him. Well, I can understand it being in a bad mood because he came back in time specifically to save his future. He wasn't like this in 06, which also had a bad future. I think I figured it out. His parents were jerks. This version of Silver had awful parents. And the 06 Silver didn't, so he's a bit happier. They could have explained that, because Cream has a parent. Knuckles asks Eggman how he made the Master Emerald disappear, and Eggman reveals that he actually is on Angel Island. Hence the name Sky Park. So, are the other levels also on Angel Island? Why would there be a highway on Angel Island? It would make sense if Coliseum Highway was in the future, because Knuckles is long gone, so he can't object to a highway being built on his island. And obviously he didn't leave any descendants behind. Although, to be fair, how could one person stop a highway from being built? If Knuckles tried to kill somebody for making a highway on his island, he'd just become a wanted man, and Sonic would lecture him for trying to beat someone up. Eggman decides to send Metal Sonic to race against Knuckles. Wait, why doesn't he just send Metal Sonic to kill Knuckles? I guess he doesn't have any faith in him. So we're expected to believe that Knuckles can beat Metal Sonic in a race, when Knuckles is canonically not as fast as Sonic. Plus, Metal Sonic can fly. Why doesn't he fly over the whole level? Why would he be programmed or be ordered by Eggman off screen to let Knuckles win, which is the only reason he would win? Now I have to assume it makes sense because, in terms of the actual story, Knuckles uses digging powers and punching through wall powers to cheat to win the race, while Metal Sonic didn't have the ability to fly because it was a punishment for his betrayal of Sonic Heroes. Meanwhile, Shadow confronts Eggman, asking him if he knows where Rouge is. Eggman reveals that he turned Rouge into a card. So he's perfectly fine with having an overpowered easy victory against Rouge. And then sends Metal Sonic to race Shadow. So I guess the only reason he doesn't do this to all of his enemies in their sleep is that he doesn't know where they live. Or he thinks even that's too easy. He'd rather go out of his way to confront them with the machine after they've left their homes. Silver confronts Eggman. I guess he doesn't know that Eggman's an inventor, because otherwise he shouldn't be asking him how he got that technology. And Eggman sends Metal Sonic to race him, proving that he has to be faster than Metal Sonic with his psychokinesis alone, because logically Metal Sonic would fly out for the whole level, even if he was deprived of his flight by Eggman wanting to punish him for Sonic Heroes. He would still go through the level faster than him because he's as fast as Sonic. So it has to be that in the context of the story, Silver used psychokinesis to go through the ground and effortlessly get through the entire level, while Metal Sonic still had to do platforming and go around stuff, so of course he was slower. Why would Eggman send him to race him instead of sending him to try to kill him? I guess he doesn't want to kill Silver because he'd rather find a way to enslave him and take advantage of his psychokinesis, or keep him alive long enough that he would make the technology to copy his abilities. Silver talks confidently. Although logically he is right that he doesn't stand a chance against him because he has psychokinesis. Wait, why doesn't he just psychokinesis Metal Sonic to instantly tear him apart? I guess by the time he thought to try to do that, Metal Sonic already left him in the dust, and he has to be up close enough to something to telekinesis it. And Sonic also has to race Metal Sonic. Why is he racing him instead of fighting him? Why wasn't he told to fight him? I guess he had no faith in him to win because he lost every time he fought with him. Maybe he wants the heroes to stay alive so that he can say that he turned them into cards. It has to be that the card thing has a charge up, so he can't just turn them into cards as soon as they go up to him because it's out of battery. He has to charge it. So Shadow says to himself in front of Knuckles that he needs to find the doctor. And then Knuckles has the bright idea to ask if he found Eggman. Were you not paying attention to anything that he said? Granted, maybe he was too far away to hear him, but it could have easily not had him talk out loud in the first place, which he wouldn't do. Shadow taunts Knuckles for being clueless and having Eggman get away from him. It's not very in character for him to taunt Knuckles. Silver mentions that he's looking for Eggman Nega, who would never let the camera he's using out of his sight. There's no logical reason that he would have taken this long to say this. It's like the writer didn't have faith in the story to keep being interesting past the point where he said this, because there's no reason to wait this long to reveal this, unless you think the plot needs to have a plot twist like this, that only happens this far into the story. Sonic doesn't react to it because he just showed up before hearing what Silver had to say, so we don't get to find out if Rush already happened or not. It would have been nice to see Sonic's confused reaction to hearing that Eggman Egg was both from the future and from Blaze's dimension. Considering that the Rivals games are made by Backbone Entertainment while the Rush games are made by Dimps, it does make sense that they give the character a different backstory from each other, because they were probably just given the character design and told to go wild. I like to think that both are canon. Blaze's dimension is 200 years in the future compared to Sonic's, so he's both from a future and from the Soul Dimension at the same time. But this really shouldn't be left up to interpretation. One thing that confuses me though, is why is Eggman Nega pretending to be Eggman in front of Sonic and his allies in this game? When Sonic rushed, he said, "You taught me by not using my full title," and reveals himself immediately. Meanwhile, Shadow confronts Eggman to find out what he's hiding, and Eggman Nega decides to tell him right away that he's got Eggman trapped in a card. Maybe he thought it'd be too risky to tell Sonic about it because Sonic is the famous hero of the world who defeated Eggman numerous times while Shadow only just became a hero and joined Gun. I'm assuming that's why he can keep in contact with Rouge through communicator transmissions like in 06. Because we never see the Sonic characters having cell phones for some reason. And this isn't the comics, so I don't think they have personal wrist communicators. Knuckles shows up, and Eggman explains that in the future, Angel Island gets renamed into Onks Island. Why did Eggman Nega take so long to tell Shadow who he is if he's fine with telling him that? It's never really confirmed if Onks Island is in Blaze's dimension, or actually in the future, and Eggman Nega just invented a time machine like Eggman did to retrieve Metal Sonic from Little Planet, and then force these guys into his trap. Shadow finds Silver and asks him why he's chasing after the Doctor. So now Silver recognizes them from his history books? And his dialogue to Shadow sucks. Just tell him what's going on already. Oh good, he actually tells him now. What does he mean, there's a chance? Why would he say there's a chance? Why didn't he tell Shadow that already? And then, Silver acts out a character once again by yelling at him and trying to attack him. Meanwhile, Knuckles complains that he got away instead of sticking around and says that if there's one thing he's good at, it's running. Only to wonder how he's in the future. Sonic's known for running, not Eggman. The one thing he's good at is inventing things, not just running. Knuckles complains that it doesn't make any sense. What he should be saying is, it doesn't make any sense because why can't he just send his robots after him in the present? Sending them to the future would make sense if it was so that he could take advantage of his own army, because it's Eggman Nega. But then why is he still impersonating Eggman? He doesn't have to anymore because it's the future. So I guess he's literally just doing it so that he can feel smug about the fact that they think he's Eggman when he's not. And then we see Eggman yelling at Sonic, showing that Sonic ran ahead to him and got Tails' card back. If he just threw the card into the ocean, he should have just hid it in some underground bunker that belongs to him, that he doesn't know where it is, and then he'd never be able to get it back. But it is in character for him to brag to his enemies. I assume he took a picture of the card to turn it back into Tails. Why would there be an antidote anyways? I guess it's for his robots to use it, in case he's turned into a card. He should have just locked the feature out to everything but him, so only he could be returned to normal. I guess he was so arrogant that he thought he wouldn't have to. I mean, he isn't used to dealing with the heroes. Sonic might have jumped up to the Eggmobile and stole the camera and card out of his hands, or Homie attacked the Eggmobile to shake it and make him drop them, which either way would have been cool to see. And then the heroes move on to Death Yard, which must have been named by Eggman. After Act 1 of the level is over, every character has to race Metal Sonic. I guess Sonic doesn't really mean it when he calls him lame, because you think you'd consider him to be a worthy opponent, considering how hard he was to take down in games like Sonic Heroes and Sonic the Fighters. Wait, what? Sonic never actually fought Metal Sonic in this game, so why did he have to be rebuilt? Maybe he wasn't using the real Metal Sonic in the first place. It just bothers me that he says the previous Metal Sonic when he wasn't destroyed at the end of Sonic Heroes, even though that would make a lot more sense than what IDW went with. But this is implying that the Metal Sonic after Sonic Rivals is not the same one from Sonic Heroes. Why would Eggman Nega lie to him that it's the previous Metal Sonic? I guess he's only speaking in a certain sense, and the current Metal Sonic still has the data of the previous Metal Sonic, and it's the same person either way, it's just that he changed bodies. When did Metal Sonic get destroyed? I can easily assume that he smashed into a wall after the race, but that should have been explained. Since the Master Emerald is a unique object that exists across the space-time continuum, when the Future Emerald was turned into a card, its existence in all the time frames vanished as well. That's a pretty cool concept, but it makes it incredibly vulnerable though. Why was the Master Emerald ever around? Because it was always destined to be turned into a card by Eggman Nega. I think it's a stable time loop. I'm pretty sure that nothing outside of the games acknowledges this. And that makes sense, because what are the chances that only one future villain is destined to do something to the Master Emerald? Why is Knuckles surprised by this? He's the guardian of the Master Emerald. This kind of knowledge should have been in a Echidna Scroll, or on a rune in Angel Island. I guess the knowledge was lost over time. I'm guessing Eggman Nega discovered that about the Emerald by accident when he took a picture of it in the future. Otherwise, it'd be pretty villain of him to know more about the Master Emerald than Knuckles does. Silver confronts him with being Eggman Nega and he finally admits to it. And that's when his picture changes to that of Eggman Nega. So now I have to assume that he used technology like nanobots, or his clothes are just that technological that he changed the way he looked. He could be a robot. Robo-Robotnik changed the way he looked in a matter of seconds. And Shadow has to deal with Metal Sonic as well, after Eggman Nega reveals himself to him as well. And there's multiple ways to end up with kids. Not just he managed to get a girlfriend. They could have just explained that he made a kid of his with technology, and he just got the DNA from some random woman without her permission. Silver insists that it'll bring Eggman Nega back to where he came from. So why doesn't he just telekinetically float him over to it? I guess he would run out of energy in all that time. Also, I guess Eggman Nega is far enough away from him every time he talks to him that it's impossible for him to use telekinesis against him. For all we know, he's amplifying his voice with the Eggmobile. But that wouldn't stop Silver from just flying over to him. I guess I have to assume that he knows he'd run out of energy if he flew up for too long. And he knows that about Silver. Eggman Nega gets so frustrated that he decides to turn the entire planet into a card. It sounds really silly and laughable. And if you heard it out of context, you'd assume someone made it up as a joke. It's taken completely seriously in this game despite how ridiculous it is. Although to be fair, if someone capable of turning the planet into a card threatens to do it in front of you in real life, you'd be freaking out and taking it seriously too. It's also a great way to remind you of how insane and evil Eggman Nega is compared to Eggman. You just made me very, very angry. It's such a hammy, ridiculous line. I like it in an ironic sense. but it's not really natural to have characters announce how they feel. It's the kind of line you'd expect from a parody character. How would Eggman Nega not know that if he turns the entire planet into a card, he would kill himself? I guess he does know that and doesn't care. It'd make more sense if he explained that he can just warp back to the present day from something that he has with him at all times. So the story continues to Meteor Base. Eggman Nega tries to escape in a rocket with a giant version of the card camera, all while pretending to be Eggman. He tells Sonic that he's already gathered enough energy to take a picture of the entire planet, and he has to put Amy's card to the energy transfer device to do it. It sure is convenient that he managed to find Amy. Tails and Rouge I could understand because it could have been after him, but why Amy? He wouldn't know where she lived. I guess he just conveniently stumbled into her in the park. Sonic says he totally forgot about Amy. What a dick. It could be funny if you're in the right mood though. So Amy gets rescued, and she's dizzy and doesn't know what's going on. How inconvenient that it causes you to be dizzy for no reason, when it's by definition having you go back to the way you were before, and you weren't dizzy before. Sonic points out that Eggman had other cards with him when he ran away, and he runs away to come after him. That's an anticlimactic ending. Knuckles gets his Master Emerald back. It's pretty confusing that Silver says, "my future," and "as well." This one line implies that Eggman, Nega, and Sonic are not from the same world as Silver, which makes sense, because if he's from another dimension, then of course he's going to be completely different from 06 Silver. Eggman Nega is turned into a card himself somehow, and Silver decides to return every card back to normal, including Eggman's, because Silver is naive like that. What an idiot! I guess it makes sense because he doesn't know Eggman's evil, because otherwise, why doesn't he just return him to normal in a police station and then handcuff him when he's dizzy? Eggman Nega explains to Shadow before the previous boss why he wants to destroy the world, explaining that he wants to alter his own family history and have it so that the world recognizes his genius by erasing Eggman's life and failures. How is destroying the world gonna alter the family history? Never mind the fact that Eggman's already had a bunch of failures in the world and got an infamous reputation. Never mind the fact that if he really is descended from Eggman, then making it so that Eggman could never have a descendant would result in Eggman Nega never even existing in the first place. Of course, Eggman Nega is insane, so naturally he doesn't see logic. So this is the part where it being a twist that he's Eggman Nega instead of Eggman is actually taken advantage of, because Eggman wouldn't turn the world into a card. But it could just as easily be rewritten that Eggman was hit with an insane ray. Besides, the fact that someone wants to turn the planet into a card doesn't even have to be written at all. It doesn't even matter because it's not going to actually happen and then the heroes have to go back in time. That would have been more interesting. It's just Eggman Nega to make it a more threatening ending. But Eggman's someone who split the planet in half. I think he would merely threaten to turn the world into a card but not actually mean it, and a ploy to get world domination. So it's not really the plot twisting. And for all we know, Eggman Nega doesn't mean it either. Wait, first he said Amy's card, and then he says Rouge's card? I guess he can do it with any card. So he's specifying which card he's using to taunt the person who cares about the card. Not because it matters which card he uses. That's confusing. Did he try the same plan 4 times in a row and got stopped 4 times in a row? It is like him to be stubborn. I can understand that Amy and Rouge have magical powers of their own that could give their cards power for a rocket, but not as much power as the Master Emerald. I guess he didn't need as much power as the Master Emerald. So using the Master Emerald card was just overkill. I say Amy has magical powers because not only is she fast in Sonic Heroes, but she's also got a Tornado Hammer move. After Shadow beats the previous boss fight, he rescues Rouge. The endings are all the more underwhelming from the way the cutscenes are presented. This plot sucks. It's a dumb story because of arbitrary reasons for conflict, and Silver's character being mangled into a bully with no social skills. It's also a pretty bland story. The card camera is the only thing new. That's silly even for a Sonic game. I like the reveal that it's really Angel Island from the future, but nothing was actually done with it.